What if the thoughts shaping your life are not the loud ones, but the quiet ones you repeat every single day? Not the breakdown, not the crisis, not the one painful moment you can clearly remember, but the small thoughts, the fast thoughts, the thoughts that pass so quickly you barely notice them. I'm tired. I'm behind. I can't do this. Why does this always happen to me? It's never enough. I'm not enough. Most people never stop long enough to catch these thoughts. They live inside them. They react from them. They build their emotions, decisions, habits, and identity around them without ever questioning where those thoughts came from. But over the last 7 days, you did something different. You slowed down. You observed. You paid attention.
As far as the brain is concerned, any ability translates to some molecule.
The brain is the biggest mystery in science today.
His response?
Home to billions of neurons, it's your body's mission control. As you go, increases connections, joining the emotional and motor centers.
Campus, which is important for memory formation and spatial orientation, which is the ability.
And that changes everything. Welcome back to the Neuro Rewire Program. This is step 2. The step where observation becomes understanding. If you completed step 1 properly, then for the last 7 days, you stopped living only from reaction and started watching what was actually happening inside your mind. You did not study yourself from the outside world. You did not rely on what other people think you should feel. You studied your real internal experience. You paused. You noticed. You wrote it down. And now, something important should already be clear. Your mind is not random. It has patterns. It has repetition. It has emotional habits. And those habits are influencing your reality far more than most people realize. So in this step, we take that raw awareness and turn it into direction. Because awareness alone is powerful, but awareness without structure changes very little. This step gives structure to what you observed. It helps you see what is actually repeating, what is actually dominant, and what is actually shaping the way you think, feel, and behave. Most people want change, but they do not know exactly what needs to change. So they stay busy. They consume motivation. They watch content. They make promises to themselves. They tell themselves, this week will be different. But they never go deep enough to identify the real pattern underneath the problem. They say, I want to feel better. I want more confidence. I want more money. I want less stress. I want more peace. I want to stop overthinking. And all of those desires are valid, but they are still too broad. Because if the target is vague, the solution will be vague too. And vague problems create vague solutions. That is why so many people keep trying, but keep ending up in the same emotional cycles. They work on symptoms. They react to the surface. They attack the visible effect, while the core pattern underneath stays untouched. You cannot change what you still define too loosely. You have to get specific. Usually, people do not have 100 separate problems. Usually, they have a small number of dominant internal programs, and those programs leak into everything. One fear affects your confidence. Your confidence affects your decisions. Your decisions affect your income. Your income affects your stress. Your stress affects your sleep, your energy, your relationships, and your body. That is how patterns spread. That is why step 2 matters so much. Because this is the step where you stop fighting your life in a scattered way. Instead of trying to fix everything at once, you identify what repeats most, what shows up most often, what drains the most energy, what silently keeps reinforcing the same internal state. When you find the dominant pattern, you find leverage. And leverage creates real change faster than random effort ever will. By now, you should have your notebook from step 1. And if you did this seriously for the full 7 days, those pages should not be empty. They should contain real thoughts, raw thoughts, repeated thoughts, the honest language of your automatic mind. Inside those pages, you will probably notice something important: repeated phrases, repeated complaints, repeated assumptions, repeated fears, repeated emotional interpretations. Maybe not the exact same sentence every time, but the same meaning again and again. Different moment, same message. Different trigger, same inner reaction. And that matters, because repeated thinking is not just random thinking. Repeated thinking is programmed thinking. This is why your notebook is no longer just a journal. It is data. It is evidence. It is a record of what your mind has been rehearsing behind the scenes. And when you start treating your thoughts like data, something shifts. You stop being fully identified with every thought you have and start studying the system producing them. That creates distance, and distance creates power.
So now, you are going to review your thoughts differently. Not like a victim of the mind, like an investigator of the mind. You are looking for patterns. You are looking for frequency. You are looking for emotional themes. You are looking for the thoughts that show up so often, they have started to feel normal. Because once something feels normal long enough, it starts running automatically. The first part of step 2 is simple in theory, but extremely important in practice. You are going to identify the dominant negative thoughts. Not just negative thoughts in general, the dominant ones. The ones that showed up over and over across the full 7 days. So go through everything you wrote. Read all of it, slowly. And as you review those 7 days, start paying attention to what comes back again and again. What ideas repeat? What emotional conclusions repeat? What beliefs about yourself, other people, life, money, the future, your body, or your ability keep showing up? You are not just reading, you are scanning for repetition. And this part matters. Do not choose the most dramatic thought. Do not choose the most painful moment. Do not choose the loudest emotional experience. Choose the most repeated. Because what controls your life is not always what hurts the most once. Often, what controls your life is what repeats the most quietly. The thought you barely question anymore. The thought that has become familiar. The thought that has blended into your normal way of thinking. That is the one with power. Frequency matters. Because what repeats often becomes familiar. What becomes familiar starts feeling true. What feels true starts influencing your emotions. What influences your emotions starts influencing your behavior. That means repeated thoughts are not harmless. A thought repeated enough times stops feeling like a thought. It starts feeling like reality. And once the mind accepts it as reality, you begin reacting to life through it automatically. That is how internal programming works. So in this step, do not obsess over exact wording only. You are not just counting identical sentences. You are detecting dominant themes. For example, I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. People are probably better than me. I'll never really succeed. Different sentences, same deeper pattern. Self-doubt. That is what you are trying to identify. The deeper category behind the repeated language. Once you identify the most repeated negative thoughts, the next step is to group them into categories. This is where the chaos starts becoming clear. Because when thoughts are grouped properly, patterns become visible very fast. Here are some of the most common categories people discover. Financial fear or scarcity. Thoughts like, I never have enough. Money disappears too fast. I'll never get ahead. There's always something to pay. This category is not just about money. It is often about survival, pressure, insecurity, and fear of the future. Self-doubt or low self-worth. I'm not good enough. I'm behind. I can't do this. Other people are better than me. This pattern often affects confidence, action, consistency, visibility, and ambition. Stress or overwhelm. There's too much. I can't handle all of this. I'm exhausted. I don't even know where to start. This category often creates paralysis, procrastination, irritability, and mental fatigue. Frustration or anger. This is so annoying. Why are people like this? Nothing goes smoothly. I'm tired of this. This pattern can create tension in the body, sharp reactions, and a constant sense of resistance. Rejection or insecurity. They probably do not like me. I'm not interesting enough. I always get overlooked. What if they judge me? This can shape relationships, communication, visibility, and social confidence. Victim pattern. This always happens to me. No matter what I do, nothing changes. Other people have it easier. Life is working against me. This pattern often creates emotional heaviness, passivity, and loss of personal power. lack of control. My life is chaos. I'm always behind. Everything is too messy. I can't keep up. This category often shows up in routines, environment, time management, and emotional instability. Body or health negativity. I hate how I look. I feel weak. I'm tired all the time. My body is against me. This pattern can deeply affect energy, identity, discipline, and self-image.
As you go through your notebook, you will probably notice that several thoughts belong to the same category. And usually, after the full 7 days, 3 to 5 dominant themes will stand out more clearly than the rest. Those are the ones we start with. Not 10 categories, not everything at once. Your top 3 to 5. Because the goal is not to create a perfect psychological map of your entire life in one day. The goal is to identify the patterns with the strongest influence right now. The ones that appear the most. The ones that drain the most. The ones that are clearly active. That is where your rewiring begins. So why do we start with the dominant thoughts first? Because dominant thoughts have momentum. They have weight. They have repetition behind them. They are not weak patterns. They are practiced patterns. And whatever is practiced the most usually becomes the strongest default. These thoughts have been repeated the most, emotionally reinforced the most, rehearsed in stress, in fear, in frustration, in exhaustion, in ordinary moments, and in quiet moments. That means the brain has seen them again and again, felt them again and again, and normalized them again and again. This is how a thought becomes automatic, not because it is true, but because it is repeated. And when that happens, those thoughts are no longer just passing thoughts. They become mental habits. Mental habits become emotional habits. Emotional habits become behavioral habits. And then those behaviors create real-life results, which often reinforce the original thought again. So the cycle keeps feeding itself. Thought, emotion, behavior, result. And if the original thought pattern is negative, the cycle usually keeps producing evidence that seems to confirm it. That is why these dominant patterns matter so much. They are not just thoughts. They are engines. And in part 2, we take those dominant patterns and begin the rewiring process. We take the thoughts that have been unconsciously directing your inner world and start transforming them into new sentences with a new direction, a new meaning, and a new emotional impact. Because once you know the pattern, you can stop obeying it. And once you stop obeying it, you can start rewriting it. So, before you move on, go back through your notebook. Identify the top 3 to 5 dominant categories. Write them down clearly. Do not rush this step, because what you identify here is what you will rewire next. And when you are ready, continue with part 2. That is where the rewrite begins.